Доброго дня, шановні.
Good afternoon, dear colleagues. We start our presentation. Project Transparent Energy, DiXi Group, supported by USAID. And today we are going to speak about movement of energy from extraction to consumption. And here in this hall, we discussed who and in what way earns billions on this. And we hope that after this instrument is presented, the situation will improve. And I represent our speakers, Olena, Pavlenko, President of DiXi Group Analytical Center. We wait for Tetiana Boyko, Coordinator of Residential Programs of the Civic Network OPORA, and Andrii Perevertaiev, Expert in NRGI, Roman Nitsovych, Program Manager of DiXi Group, Serhii, Milman, Founder and CEO of YouControl. And we wait for him, and Pitman, Natural Resource Governance Institute, NRGI. Olena, Pavlenko is given the floor. Thank you. So in business, we have a concept, the concept of open kitchen. It is when restaurants compete for their clients, and they try to open information about what and how they cook. They publish information about the content, about caloric value, and they open kitchen and people can see how food is cooked. And in this way, restaurants try to show that they really care about the customers, they want to build trust, and they want to show that they do fair business. And energy is the same product. We do not consume it directly, but we use energy. And in the world, this competition that for the companies they work in the energy sector, they use this concept of open kitchen, and they try to show their customers that they take care of their health, and that, for example, pipelines, networks, energy is transported through, that there is no threat, no emergencies, and the quality of supply is really high. And in this way, they try to earn the trust of customers. And in Ukraine, unfortunately, we don't have such a level of competition in the energy sector. And our so-called restaurants, companies, they are not ready to work with customers at such a high level of trust. And now the prices go up, and Ukrainian consumers, they should really understand what they consume, how this product is prepared, if we may say so, and if the price they pay is really fair. Our team, project team, this is not only DiXi Group, but many experts, we initiated the process of opening of this information and to launch an open kitchen in order to help Ukrainian consumers to understand what is going on in the energy sector. And for journalists, this kitchen can be really of interest to show the connection between different companies, different stakeholders, and to present information in the best way in the outlets. So for consumers, it is also important. They can find information about energy products they consume, gas, electricity, heat, so how the price is formed for these products, and they can become more professional in their communication with energy companies. And we hope that when competition increases in energy sector, the companies, the players, so-called restaurants, will use this map not only to get additional information, but also will become the donors of information and will be able to add, to broaden this information, to broaden data, and we will be really glad if they participate. Thank you. Thank you, Olena. Now, Andrii Perevertaiev, I would like to give the floor to him in order to tell us about the consumers, because usually we present data for specialists, and now we are going to say something about consumers. So the question, so I would like to tell a fable, a brief one. I have only 5 minutes. So this is about the elephant, how they treat him. First, they put him on the rope, and the small elephant is not able to go away. And when this elephant grows up, physically he can go, but he is still attached to this small rope, and he cannot go away. And in energy sector, if we are speaking about openness of the data, we speak a lot about reforms. We adopted the law, and we started implementation. We say about the first stage of synchronizing, and the data as the basis for transparency, as the basis for the work of experts and analysts. The data, it remains like this rope to this elephant. And I was asked to take part in this project, and I have been working with open data for a long time, and I tried to create a special system to better understand this. And the number of data that is not of commercial value, for example, the data volume for practical volume. So this data should be in open access. It is in, on the sites of the companies, of any supplier. But here, this data is confidential. And without this data, it is impossible to consumers and to companies or any other stakeholders or investors that want to come to the market. They cannot assess their own risks. And this is a big problem. And the DiXi Group made a first step in order to provide better understanding how the sector works. And they provided such a map. And to systematize the data in the framework of this map, and to provide open data to customers. We believe that we succeeded about 40%. We created a calculator that shows how the price on electricity is distributed to all the segments, what goes to subsidies, what goes to oligarchs, to energy market, and so on. And the absence of data prevents to create really efficient calculator. But we hope in time we will change this, and we will improve, and we will be able to open all this information to customers. And in my opinion, this is not a commercial secret. This is just unwillingness of our colleagues from the energy sector that they do not want to disclose some information. So, okay, now I give the floor to Tetiana Boyko.
You are in time. This is just your turn to speak. Good afternoon, dear colleagues. I thought to talk about the access to information, how we get it, and here we have brought, this is how, in the best case, we get information. This is the format of information, and here we can see it. As you can, what do you think, what is this? They are documents which are of restricted access, they are confidential, and we can't find it in public access. You know, there is a group in the Cabinet of Ministers and Parliament on gas distribution networks. There's the reports of gas distributors on their investment programs performance in 2014-2015 received by our request from the national regulator of the energy sector. So in the best case, you can get confidential information in this way, in paper format. 1 week we spent to sort this information because it is not sorted, and we have not sorted completely yet. There should be some process to digitalize these reports, to analyze it, to clean it. Technical experts know what does this mean, to transform into machine readable format, and after that analysts will be able, or journalists will be able to work with this information. The process of preparing this data takes lion's share of time. In international practices, this is a long process, but in our case, 90% of efforts we spent to get this information. But this is our victory. Last year we couldn't find any data when we sent a request for information to communal utilities, water supply utilities, electricity utilities, especially gas distribution utilities. All information was classified except tariff figures. All the rest of information was commercial and classified. They either kept silent or they just rejected us access to information after the law on public information, and then the law on tariffs and the law on national regulator in the energy sector were adopted. Based on these 3 laws, we now have legal right to demand this data because they should be public according to those laws. Most of information which concerns tariffs, how they are set, what are their components, including transportation, supply. This information should be public, but the main word is it should be. So who should do this? Who will make this information public? The national regulator at its website, as well as local self-government's websites and suppliers of utilities websites should provide easy and easily understandable, user-friendly information. There is some progress during recent 2 years. Some portion of information started to be published. For example, investment program data started to be publicized, and calculations of tariffs. The only thing which is missing, there are no reports anywhere in the public space, and some indicators are aggregated. This is no good for analysts. Analysts should find not aggregated data. What we are doing, we first examine the website of executive authorities, national regulator, communal utilities, but they do not provide much information, and it is usually aggregated. After that, we send the request for information, and then the most interesting part starts, because they can't reject us directly, but they do not provide information directly because they don't want to. This process is long. In the best case, we send the request for information, and then we are asked for longer period. They wrote to us that they need several weeks more. After that, when they understand that they either do not have this data or in accessible format they may lack it. After that, we had such a situation with the Ministry of Energy, and the reports on losses is unavailable in public access. They are publicly inaccessible. So we were said to come to visit the ministry, to photograph documents and then scan them. After very long consultations, a part of documents is usually transferred to us. We help them to form tables. The portion of information which is in electronic format is provided to us. They said to us they do not have information about oblgaz enterprises, and they rejected us in excess to come and photograph the reports, and they provided us paper reports, and we will spend several weeks to digitalize these paper documents. When we are received so big scope of information, only oblgaz gave us free of charge. All other authorities asked for money for copying. 100 and 446 hryvnias have been paid to the national regulator for the package of documents on performance of investment programs. NGOs do not have such money. They are donors funds, so we also seek for volunteers, contributions, and interested parties who are interested in transparency of this information. And there is also advocacy campaign and fundraising campaign. This way we open data. This is how we do this. I would like to summarize that we hope that within short-term information will be posted on relevant websites of Ukrainian authorities. It will be machine readable, and we will take it and process it and provide some online services which we will be developing as analysts. Now we just put our efforts into making this information publicly available. Thank you. I'm giving the floor to Roman Nitsovych, Program Manager of DiXi Group. As far as I understand, you also experienced problems like this with analysis of information. I'm very glad to present our results in user-friendly format. I will start with saying why we are doing this. We want to demonstrate the inside cuisine, inside the kitchen, because it is confidential, it is closed from people. On the hand, we want to make owners of informations to develop good habits, good behavior among them, so that they disclose information to general public. When they lack this culture of transparency of information, then the interests of some groups are lobbied and real data is not publicized. Talking about our map, you can find it at the website NRGI.org. You can see this address on screen. Here you see the general outlay of the map, where users see a very simple. We tried to, in a very simple way, to describe how primary sources of energy are converted, transported, and turned into final products, and how they are delivered to consumers, and how they are connected between each other. Then when you click on menu icon, you enter more extended product scheme, where any person can understand how gas, for example, can get to his or her house, of what physical and market processes it undergoes. All these links, all these chains are connected with each other. You can go to electricity market where it is in question, or to district heating market. Then you can return to the gas market if you need. And there is also navigation panel on the left side, where you can also switch between these chains broken down by products. If you navigate along an individual change, when you place cursor on an element, we see 3 digits which demonstrate the contents of this element. Let's look onto consumers. On the regulated gas market, here are these 3 figures. The first figure is first layer of our information. This is the data sets which we have collected and which can be processed, with which user can work. We tried to demonstrate them, to represent them in an interactive, user-friendly form, and this is the structure of retail gas prices. The latest retail prices for gas. Here you can download the data set in Excel format, which allows electronic processing of data, and then upon opening this file you can work with it. The same concerns all other data sets, for example, as concerns gas exports. Not everyone knows that for some time we exported gas in small amounts. Before 2010, our gas exports were rather low. This is the structure of gas prices in absolute and relative figures, and you can see also price dynamics. Before 1st of April this year, We propose not just our interpretation of data, but the data sets themselves, which user can use and process further. Next, dimension of our map. This is the layer named investigations. We have collected the database of journalistic investigations during latest 5 years. We took the most high profile and talked about top schemes in different sections of our map. We can see where the most questions arise. You can see the matters of wholesale market of coal, for example. 17 investigations, all of them, most part of them concerns Rotterdam Plus scheme, methodology of tariff setting. And finally, one of the last elements, for example, gas production. The last layer is so-called black boxes. In every kitchen you have a box for food product storage, the same black rooms where you can do black scenes are available in the energy sector. Black boxes are situations or spheres of the energy market where the information is lacking and it is not accessible for general public, so nobody understands what is happening, or this helps to commit some crimes. For example, attracting not transparent investors into gas production. First, we have identified these black boxes. Then we have analyzed them. We opened them thanks to cooperation with investigative journalists, thanks to cooperation with governmental bodies. We ask them via requests for information, or in general we want publication of such information on regular basis and in the format which could be easily processed. Why we are provided with information in paper format while this information is compiled in electronic format? This is very surprising. This is the question to the culture of data management at our public authorities. So navigating through this map, you can shift from one link to another link in our map, and here you can see how the energy sector is structured in general. This is very interesting for ordinary people. Then the person can get information as well. Just clicking on elements and looking where the most number of investigations is in place and where even black boxes are present. After that, the person can download the data from this website and use it for his or her own purposes and communicate with utilities using this data. Many things, hidden crimes happen at the consumption level. The map is not comprehensive. We have information which we have collected via requests for information. The next step was to get additional information. This would be also our next step. We will be processing information which we receive from authorities. We will be working with profile associations. They have some portion of information. It is not as official as the information provided by governmental bodies, but there are some areas of data which are available only at professional associations. Then we will also conduct more in-depth examination of financial information, for example, outstanding payments of consumers, ministries, local authorities, the national regulator collect this data on consumer debts, and we will also compare this information received from different sources, because we see there are interesting, surprising things which one can get upon comparison of information for different years or from different origins. There are some vivid examples where we even don't understand how can this happen. From the gas sector, we have such example when Kharkiv region's gas consumption increased threefold. Although there were no anomalies or some gas supply level has not changed. So where this 2 billion cubic meters of gas were included into consumers' bills. This is the case which is out of the general trend. Other regions, they have not increased gas consumption by 2 billion cubic meters. This is phenomenon. We will be updating our map on regular basis. On the other hand, this is only a beta version, and we invite all interested persons who know where to get some data, who can recommend us how to depict, to represent these flows in the best manner. We will work with all your recommendations and incorporate them so that this map becomes a useful tool for our population. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Roman. We have 20 minutes of time left. I would like to give the floor to Serhii Milman, founder and CEO of YouControl. Good afternoon. As concerns information, I am impressed with your map. It is cool for investigations. Working with it would be interesting to see corrupt schemes. As concerns information, we have been always facing this problem. It is either incorrect, or it is unverified, or it is untrue. So I think with the country with such high level of corruption, this should be the governmental level matter which should be addressed and resolved. I mean, quality of data issue. The data quality has been decreasing this year. Low number of enterprises demonstrates codes of enterprises. It is hard to understand who is the source of information, and the names of data are also usually are not true. The data, when the data is of low quality, this means that the government, the state, is not interested in transparency in this domain. So the society, the public, should press on the government to get more transparency, which will help us to decrease corruption when we will demonstrate such problems as low quality services or insufficient provision of services provided by such service providers. I am giving the floor to Natural Resource Governance Institute.
The opportunity to participate on this panel. It's been a very interesting set of presentations, and I have to say that these maps are a great thing. So my name is Robert Pitman. I work for an international NGO called the Natural Resource Governance Institute. We work on trying to make the benefits that come from extractive industries, we work on trying to make sure that those benefits are distributed effectively towards citizens. For us, we find that this process involves two things. The first side of it is a technical process. It's essentially trying to make sure that good decisions and good and effective management are made across a wide variety of decisions and by a wide variety of institutions. And I think that these maps are fascinating because what they do is they show you the linkages between all of those decisions, all of those institutions, and that then helps ensure coordination, avoid duplication, and linked upness of data and transparability across those chains. The second part of our work on good governance looks at the issue of accountability. And accountability is a very difficult thing to define and to create. But we know some essential ingredients, and two of those ingredients include obviously transparency, but then the second side is citizens that actually have the capacity and ability to use the data. I think that, again, these maps are a great tool to sort of provide citizens with that insight into a sector that is very complex and difficult to understand. It provides them the entry point for that. And I guess to finish, I'd like to sort of reflect on a conversation I was having with my wife recently. My wife is involved in public health. In the public health sector, when information and data is produced, it's obvious who should be analyzing that data and who should be, and what they should be doing with it. In sectors like energy and the extractives, those questions aren't so obvious because communities of practice aren't so built up in the same way. And I think one thing that these maps do is that they provide the and especially with the function where they link up all of the investigations on particular issues, they provide a framework that helps link up sort of disparate institutions, journalists, other sort of investigators. It helps link them all together and build these communities of practice that are needed for accountability at every single level of the map. So it's a great work, and I'm looking forward to the discussion that follows. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you very much. Дуже дякую нашим спікерам.
Thank you very much to our speakers. We have saved some time, and now we are giving the floor to our audience. Do you have any questions?
The Institute of Renewable Energy. I want to speak about energy, but using this opportunity as a consumer, I have a short question to Roman. So for me, it is evident that before consuming something, you should generate it first. So I'm not speaking about gas, but in electricity sector, what about transparent information about structure of balancing? Also, about renewable energy, about the tariff on green energy. So we should look not only at consumption, but also the cost of transportation, and the main for me is generation. Second question, maybe to Mr. Perevertaiev. On the 21st, we will have a meeting of the regulator, and the second question will be inclusion to the of consumers in the process of balancing. So if we speak about generation, this is present in electricity, and we try to reflect not only information about the capabilities, but also about produced megawatts of electrical energy, and in each sector of green generation, and about share of this generation in the structure of tariff that each person see in bills. It is more difficult. Maybe Andrii will comment on this. We do not have information about the volumes of transfer and the consumption of electricity by in each category by each category of consumers, including population. We cannot calculate this proportion. We know what goes into the market from what sources of generation at what price, but we don't know what amount of electricity is went out of this. So about the first question about renewable energy.
All information provided by the Profile Association is used, whether green tariff is good, whether it is bad. We took information which is open. The NRGI state enterprise, what is the portion of course, and everything is depicted in this map in electricity sector section. We tried to evaluate for every consumer, depending on his amount of consumption, where he is, whether this consumer is household or industrial, how his hryvnia will be distributed, starting with payment and ending with provision of products. We face the problem that for us to make this in professional way, the data are either confidential, classified, or they are at the national regulators' ownership. We still have failed to receive this data, but we are working on this. The first average version has been developed by us, and we will be further expanding this. The only version is to engage consumers as secondary regulation element. there is no market of auxiliary services still, so we do not know where to engage these consumers to. Svetlana Golikova, Transera Consulting, I would like to thank for this creative product which has been developed. I have not seen similar products in other countries. The question is verification of this data. Will you be responsible for reliability of this data? Do you think it is necessary to change legislation on public access to data? If yes, so in which direction? And the last remark, for consumers, the main source of data is their bills. Household consumers' bills, if they will see their needed data which this consumer needs to take decisions on energy savings, this would be the best way. Thank you very much. Well, it would be good if our bills are not as big as this pile of paper. As concerns reliability of data, in every file which is downloadable, we give references, links where you get this data, what was the source of data, and also hyperlinks where they're available. Every person can use this link and go to the website of the relevant institution. This is either PDF format file or just JPG image file, photo file, and we have not added any our information, and we have not invented any information. We took data from sources. As concerns legislations, we are sure the legislation as it is, it also could be used. Just secondary legislation should be written. And in the scope of USAID project, Transparent Energy Sector, we cooperate with e-government and individual companies so that they disclose information and provide this information in a user-friendly format. I'd like to add first, indeed, there is a work team between us and the Ministry of Energy, and the Ministry agreed to disclose more information, and now we are in the process of auditing in our joint work team. We ask journalists, professional investigators to provide what kind of to ask what information they want to see in open data, and if the ministry will demonstrate the same willingness as they do now, then there will be information on their website, and this would be a good tradition. As concerns legislation, yes, we are fighting for transparency in the production sector, and as soon as we understand how the bill, the draft law should look like, then we will be ready to start this process and advocate it. According to the law on transparent tariff setting, before April 1st, all providers of utilities were to provide information to consumers besides bills. They should have been sent to every consumer comparison of tariffs, components of tariffs, but only 10 utility enterprises did that before April 1st. Now these licensees are addressed so that they met the license terms and provide all this information to consumers. Personal rooms in electronic format also can provide such information. As concerns changes, I want to see changes to Resolution 835 so that more information is publicized in the data format. Here we face the problem of institutional capacity. These institutions, they lack capacity to find information and provide it in machine-readable formats. We have such capacity, and just several institutions, governmental institutions. This is quite complicated.
Vladimir Mamalyga, I would like to thank you for this wonderful work. This will be really useful. Mr. Nitsovych provided an analysis, but how can we use this information? He paid attention to Kharkiv Oblast. These are the elements of energy audit, and I asked Mr. Nitsovych, do you try to develop energy balance of Ukraine? This is a provocative question, I understand this. And second provocative question, how to use this information? Because we made calculations on nuclear generation, and it happened that in the years when Yanukovych was in power, 3 out of 4 years, there were, it directly shows that something was wrong in the sector. I won't say that this was corruption, but there were problems during this time. Speaking briefly, we started to carry out this analysis, and we publish weekly the figures. And for citizens, it may be interesting, and we will also focus on other things, and we will also provide information to journalists in order they explain better to population, and part of this data and questions will be put to the holders. But I would be grateful to you if you provide us with some data, and maybe we will be able to make some more information public. So maybe law enforcement bodies should deal with these issues. So why do we need this information? We invite the journalists from the regions who are interested in energy sector. Please use this data, use this black box, and you can apply to the contest and to carry out the investigation in the sector. YouControl, our partner, also supports these investigation and open data. And if you are journalists, if you are interested to carry out investigation in energy sector, please join us through our site, DiXi Group site. The last question, Andrii, expert on energy. Tell us, please, the question to Olena. Do you plan in prospect to create an initiative to increase the quality of strategic planning in energy sector based on these complex data? Because this data, this is not goal in itself. As Mr. Mamalyga said correctly, this data should be used properly, and you know that strategic planning is an important thing, and we have problems in strategic planning in this country. About strategic planning, I can say that in Ukraine we have good capacity in order to carry out this planning, and this map is a small fraction of the opportunities we have. And we should have a champion who will start the process. We need a driver. So, about strategic planning, we have a document that is used by the energy community, and it is used in the strategies. It shows the bigger balance, secondary and primary resources around the country. And in this map, there is a disclosure of energy balance, and this is one of the goals. And the ministry started to publish this data recently. So we thank you for your participation. We thank DiXi Group and our partners for this wonderful map. And maybe we will get unexpected results. How this instrument will be used, maybe we do not know. And we wait for pleasant surprises from journalists and experts. And thank you very much. The end of